Okay, so what we have is, this is what happens when you first get into SPSS. So you're going to go to New Data Set and click on Open, and you end up with this blank spreadsheet. It looks a lot like Excel. And so what we have here at the bottom, we have a data view and we have a variable view. Let me maximize that so you can see it better. So we have a data view at the bottom and a variable view. So let's go to the variable view. And what we have here are a number of options: name, type, width, decimals, label, values, missing, columns, alignment, measure, and roll. And if you go through the SPSS tutorial that I posted, you'll be able to see how those things line up. But let's put our, let me find my code book. Let me put our code book next to it, and let's start the process of creating our data file. So the very first thing we want to do is to create an ID number. We do that with every survey that I've ever entered into SPSS. I create an ID number, and that allows me to be able to go back and say, okay, this survey, I gave it the ID number 1, and if I have a question about how this survey was entered, then I know which paper copy to go back and look at. So I always add an ID number. Okay, so we don't need any decimals for this ID number, and it is a numeric variable. And in our label, we can just write ID number, so we know it's just a little bit of a description of what that variable is. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So Q1 is that first question. I am involved in politics. That's also going to be a numeric variable because we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as our options. We don't need any decimal places. That width thing, you can leave that alone. That's just a standard thing that gets added in there. Under ID, under the label, we can write, I am involved in politics. If you have a short question, then you can easily just enter that in. Under values, I'm going to click into that window and I get my 3 dots. So I'm going to click on those 3 dots. My first value is going to be strongly agree, and I'm going to add that. My second one is agree. So when they answer 2, that means when I type in 2 into the system, it's going to record that as agree, and that's what I want it to do. I told you my typing wasn't great. This is why you do that. So add, and my 4th one is disagree. My 5th one is strongly disagree. And I'm going to click OK. And so now I have those options there. If I open that window back up, under missing, I'm going to say that 9 is missing data. So there's some options here: no missing values, discrete missing values, and this is where you would enter 9 or 99, or you could do range. So anything 9 or above would be a missing value. Okay, so let's see. Everything else is okay. Under measure, I don't know if we've talked about this yet, but this is where you would put the level of measurement. And SPSS treats levels of measurement. It provides nominal, ordinal, and scale. And scale is the equivalent of interval ratio level data for SPSS. So that's what you would put in there if you have an interval ratio level data. So don't trust, when we open up existing data sets, don't trust that whoever created that data set did a thorough job of marking the measure accurately. So you're going to need to go back and look at it and see, is that really a scale variable? Is that really a nominal variable? Because they may have misentered it or left it alone to be auto-generated, and so it may be incorrect, and that's really going to mess with your statistics. So we have our first variable entered, our first question. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to show you a trick. I guess you could call it a trick. So here is the second question, and it is, the government should increase federal education funding. And I am just going to call this ed funding because I don't want to have to type all that out. Now, this has the exact same response options as the first question. I can grab this and copy it and paste it. And I can do the same thing here. and then select it as an ordinal level variable since it's exactly the same. And so I can go through, once I've created that matrix of response categories, I can copy and paste that. So I don't have to type in 1 equals strongly agree, 2 equals agree over and over and over again, which is great. Okay, so you're going to keep doing this with all of the questions in the survey. I'm going to scroll down, and we're going to pretend like I've been entering variables, and I'm going to show you what to do for the race and ethnicity question, and so for the others that are set up that way. So that would be Q16, which is race and ethnicity, and it's going to be a numeric variable, and I enter in my options. I'm not going to enter all of them in because now I've shown you how to do that. Okay, so we'll just say that I finished entering all those in. So now I'm going to enter question 16A, right? And that's going to be my race other. I'm not going to enter any values in here, okay? But under this variable type, I'm going to select string, and it can tell you how long do you want, how wide, how many characters do you want to allow to be typed in there. And the maximum used to be 255. If you know anything about computers, you might understand why 255 was the maximum string allowed. In this case, I think 50 is going to be sufficient. It's probably even bigger than it needs to be. People are probably going to write 1 word or 2 words in there, but I'm going to give myself the freedom of having it be 50. So whenever you have an other field where you have a line where people can answer, remember you're going to create a new variable, and that's what each of these rows is its own variable. So you're going to create a new variable field, and then you're going to create that as a string variable and give yourself enough space. You can always go back in and make it wider, so you can go back to the variable view and make it wider. So I'm going to click OK. And over here, it's obviously a nominal level variable, because anytime you have a string and answer, it's a nominal level variable. Okay, so we're not going to list any others and so on. Okay, so once I have the structure set up, let me go and then show you what that looks like in our data view. So now we have question 1, question 2, question 16, question 16A. Yours is going to go all the way across the screen. Once you have it, it's going to keep scrolling right, and you're going to be able to see all of those. Okay, so I pulled up that PDF file that has the 5 sample cases in it. So this is what we would do when we were entering it. So this is case number 1, that's my ID number. And then question 1, this person said strongly agree. Strongly agree is coded as 1. And if you ever get curious, you can go here and right click, and it'll show you the variable information, and it'll remind you what those value labels mean. So 1 is strongly agree. So if you can't remember how you're supposed to enter the data and you don't have your code book sitting with you, once you have the data structure created in SPSS under that variable view where we were working, then you can go and look at it. So this is going to show you, here's what these variables are, and here's what those response categories are. Okay, so that person answered strongly agree to that question. They answered strongly agree to the second question, which is Q2 on increasing educational funding. Let's go down to the race and ethnicity question, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Hispanic would be coded as 5. We didn't fully code it. And here there would be nothing to enter. And then you would continue to go through and mark how in your data set how they answer the question. So look at what this would be. So if we had our entire data set, it would be 1, 1, 1, 4, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 5, 2, 1, 4, right? So that's what it would be going across that first row here for this response, okay? And then we would have all of these, we would enter 19 under age, we would type in Illinois under home state, and so we would continue to go through all of the questions, and then we would have at the very last question where it says your social networking, we'd have 1 for Twitter, 1 for Facebook, and all of the others would be entered as 0 since there was no responses. They didn't mark those, so they don't use those systems or those things. Under this question of having any children, they marked no. So in this question, the answer would be 88, right? Because that was not applicable to them. If they had said yes, they had children, but they didn't tell us how many, that would be 99 for missing data. If they said no, then we mark 88 here because they shouldn't have answered the question and they didn't answer the question. So I hope this helps you to see how we enter the data. And so once you've created your data structure in variable view where you've entered all of your questions, all the response categories, you've designated the level of measurement for each question, which is what we were doing here. Then you're going to go through for these 5 cases, these 5 sample response surveys, and you're going to enter the data in the data view as though you were doing creating your data file. And this is what we do. We collect data from a survey, we go and enter that data into the spreadsheet, and then we can run analysis. So the first SPSS assignment is getting you to practice that data file construction process and look and practice entering data. And then from this point, we'll be using existing data sets that have been created by other sources, and we'll be analyzing the data that they've collected and entered into